Adam is the co-founder and CEO of Hireology, where for the past decade, he has led our company on a mission to help businesses succeed by building exceptional teams and workplace cultures. Adam's a nationally recognized keynote speaker, author of The Best Team Wins, Build Your Business Through Predictive Hiring, and is a noted columnist for Inc. magazine. In 3 of the last 4 years, Adam was a finalist for the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and in 2015 was named a top 25 HR industry game changer by Workforce magazine. Under Adam's leadership, Hireology ranked number 4 on the Inc. 500 list of America's fastest growing companies in 2016, and has appeared on the Inc. 5000 list each of the last 5 years. Hireology has been twice recognized nationally as a top 50 business workplace by Inc. magazine and a top company culture by Entrepreneur magazine to boot. Adam, we're so pleased to have you here. The virtual stage is all yours.
Hey, thanks, Mike. And welcome everyone to the 5th annual Elevate. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us virtually today. Like we said earlier, it was a tough decision to go virtual, but this is our reality in the world we live in. And so here we are virtual for the second, and I hope last year in a row, but we think it was the right move because it gives us an opportunity to connect with more of you while keeping everyone safe. As evidenced by today's virtual format, the pandemic certainly isn't over, but I do believe we're at the tail end of it. So today I want to talk about what it takes in this industry to attract and hire top talent in the post-pandemic labor market. And what I am most excited to share are the results of a recent survey we conducted with our automotive customers about what they're doing to overcome today's hiring challenges. So let's dig in. All right, just to give you a little background on myself, I'm Adam Robinson, co-founder and CEO of Hireology. We've been focused on the automotive space since 2014, almost exclusively, and today work with 1 out of every 4 new car franchise dealers in the United States. And so, you know, whether you're a single point store or a member of the management team at a large platform group, my goal today is for you to walk out of here grounded in the current data on what it takes to be successful in hiring, and walking away with 1 or 2 actionable ideas that you can take back to your dealership to help transform hiring to a source of strategic competitive advantage for you and your investors. We've got an all-star lineup here today. I'm so excited to jump right in. So what I have for you today, I've broken down into 4 parts. First, we're going to take a look at some industry changes that came about because of COVID, which I believe are here to stay. Second, I want to take a deeper dive into what today's post-pandemic job seeker needs and expects. Third, we're going to talk about how you can then attract these people to build a modern and robust workforce. And then fourth and finally, how all-in-one HR technology can help you do that. So first, let's touch on some of the unprecedented changes we've seen in the space that previously we thought were temporary due to the pandemic. But as I said before, I believe are actually here to stay. So think back to March of 2020. We were all navigating uncharted territory, and we did what we had to do to survive. I mean, chances are you reduce staff in some capacity, given that in-person sales were basically halted for 2 months, and you just didn't have the revenue to justify keeping everyone on staff. You also implemented social distancing because of the virus, and maybe that was capacity limits at your dealership or requiring appointments only with customers, and you relied much more heavily on technology to facilitate much of the selling process. And I think COVID accelerated the move to digital retailing by probably 3 to 5 years. And so, which arguably is a good thing for the business, and it needed to happen. Combined, these changes made it possible for you to continue selling cars despite all the hardships we were facing at the time. In fact, many of you found that within this new pandemic reality, you were actually able to drive more profit than you were before the pandemic, even at lower volume. An interesting juxtaposition, which John Malshenko will be covering a little bit later today. So here's a look at some of the headlines, just to demonstrate how widespread and massive the layoffs in the industry were, in our industries were. Experts estimated that in total, dealerships laid off nearly 1/3 of the retail workforce by May of 2020. Our predicted range here at Hireology, just looking at the data that we had, was that up to half could be downsized. We landed at about a third. It was, from manufacturer to supplier to the retail channel, everybody did what they needed to do to make it through. And as I mentioned at the beginning, at Hireology, we actually conducted a survey of our own dealership customers last month. So this is hot off the press data. And what we found in the numbers, track pretty similarly to that. So while a majority of you said your pandemic-related layoffs were in the 0 to 20% range, about 1 in 4 dealerships let more than 20% of their staff go. Now, what's interesting is that in the same survey we conducted of our dealership customers, we found that nearly 71% of dealers are not planning to replace or backfill all of these roles. Now, what this is telling us is that when we implemented all of these changes due to the pandemic, what dealers found was that not only did it allow you to continue selling cars, but it actually allowed you to operate far more efficiently and sell more cars with fewer people on staff, right? And if you've heard me speak over the last 5 elevates, I've been on somewhat of a soapbox saying we are overstaffed in this business. Labor needs to get more efficient. Well, now we've been forced to do that. And this part, the more with less part, is what I think is here to stay. And the numbers from our survey prove it. In a few years from now, when health concerns related to COVID are a thing of the past, I think very few of you will have the same number of people on your team than you did before pandemic 2020. And it's because the pandemic forced us to make changes to your business model that I think will turn out to be far better for all of us and for the industry. And okay, so to dig in a little deeper here, we asked our customers what percentage of those roles they're looking to backfill, and half said they're only going to backfill about 20% or less of them. So regardless of how many people we let go, about half of dealers are saying that they really only need about 1 in 5 of those people back in order to continue operating at the rate and profit level that they want to. We'll get into this a little further down, but I think the big reason behind this is many of you found that the people you did retain were your very best, right? The most efficient, the highest performers. And many of them had the skills to do more, right? In an expansion of the role that they previously had. So in addition to selling more cars online, you had people who were much more efficient and had a wider range of skills. So we were able to sell more cars than we did when we were at full capacity, right? So higher volume, lower headcounts, a recipe for the record profits that this industry and the retail channel enjoyed over the last 18 months. I think another factor that's contributing to this backfill pattern of 1 in 5 is the chip shortage. And so similarly, 1 in 5 of our dealership customers today are saying they're reducing the number of open roles they have because they don't have the cars. And I think the takeaway here is that we're going to feel the effects of the pandemic for a long time, either in the labor force and or in the supply chain. And I think most of you understand this. So we're weathering multiple storms, let's say, with fewer but more impactful and more efficient staff. So in addition to this reduced headcount concept being a permanent change, in my opinion, the shift that many of you made to digital retailing at the onset of the pandemic is here to stay as well. In fact, one study found that 75% of dealerships say they made a permanent switch to digital retailing and marketing in 2020, similar to how operating with less allowed you to be more efficient and drive more sales. Digital retailing offers the same benefits. Now, we've been talking about the opportunity of digital retailing for 10 years in this business. COVID forced us to get there fast. So long after the pandemic is over, I know that many of you will continue operating this way. Not only because it works, but because it's just table stakes these days. Car buyers today are younger, they're digital natives, they expect to research and buy cars online, much like they do any other purchase. We've been talking about that coming forever. Now it's here and it's here to stay. And they're going to shop with the dealerships that empower them to do so and an experience that caters to where they are. So I think what all of this means is that dealerships are realizing that what matters most in driving success in the store is your people. It's not about simply filling as many sales positions as possible with warm bodies. It's about finding the right people for your dealership. You need to be hiring the best of the best, and they need to have different skills and abilities than the people you may have hired before the pandemic. And when you do find the right people, you can actually drive more volume and revenue and profit with fewer people on the roster. But filling open roles with the right people in our space is a lot easier said than done. According to Hireology's recent survey, despite dealerships' plans for not filling every single role lost at the beginning of the pandemic, 70% of dealers have more than 3 jobs open right now at their store, right? So stores have 70% have 3 or more open jobs right now, and about a third of them have more than 7 open heads. So even if you know you need to find better, more skilled workers, it is really hard to find these people. And of course, the reason behind this is today's hiring crisis, or what people in the media like to call a talent shortage. Businesses across all industries are looking to hire as we all get vaccinated, as cases drop, and as a return to some semblance of normalcy comes into play. The problem here is that the people who were laid off at the onset of the pandemic aren't necessarily jumping back into the workforce. You've read the headlines. They've had time to reprioritize their careers. They've got different needs and expectations about what they want out of their professional life. And so this makes it really tough for you to hire the best if you haven't made changes in what you're offering to address these changing expectations. As I've said for the last 10 years, jobs are products, and these jobs have to be retailed like the digital products that they are, just like you retail cars and just like you retail your service. Jobs are products, they've got to be retailed like products. And so that leads us to the next big topic I want to cover today: evolving job seeker expectations. And so if you're sitting here in the conference today wondering how you're going to get that dealership staffed, this is content that is going to be directly relevant to you as you think about how to position yourself as an employer of choice in your community. Much like many of the changes you made during the pandemic, job seekers have made changes to their career expectations and their aspirations. And at Hireology, we conducted another survey of recent job seekers. We do this every year and announce the results here at Elevate. So we dig into the reasons behind some of these challenges filling open roles. And so we surveyed 5,000 job seekers in our industry across a variety of auto-related industries and retail. And what we found is that many of these changing job seeker needs and expectations that came about because of the pandemic are permanent, full stop. So let's dig in. First, we found that job seekers are much less loyal now than they were before the pandemic. The pandemic fundamentally changed the workforce in expectations in so many ways. And many job seekers realized that they do not have to stay in jobs that they don't like. They do not have to stay in jobs that aren't meeting their needs. And they've reprioritized what they want in their careers. So whether that's higher pay, more flexibility, more career growth, the result is they're feeling less loyal to their employers unless their employers are delivering what they expect. And so for dealerships, this can be great if you're delivering, or it can be super challenging if you're not. And so it means your employees are less loyal to you, but it also might mean that they're less loyal to their employers in other industries, so we can reach in there and attract them into ours. Bottom line, what this means is you've got to be on your A game. You've got to work harder than ever to retain people. People are quitting in record numbers across all industries, right? They call it the big quit. It's still going on. And it's also an opportunity to reach people in other industries who may be unhappy, deliver on their expectations, and show them what a great industry ours is. And we also found that job seekers are applying to significantly more jobs than they had applied to in the past. Now, this might go against some of the media's portrayal of job seekers today, that people are hesitant to enter the workforce. The reality is that people who are motivated and who are out there actively seeking roles, they're applying to a lot of different roles because they have plenty of options. They want to find what works best for them. So in years past, when we had done this survey, we'd only get about 1 in 4 people who indicated they were applying to more than 10 jobs in a job search. That's a lot, right? That's a time-intensive process. This year, we found about 45%, a 4x increase, applied to more than 10 jobs when looking for a new employment opportunity, and another 24% applying to between 5 and 10 jobs. So what this is telling us is number one, for 75% of your applicants, you are competing with between 5 and 10 or more other employers for that person. That's a highly competitive marketplace. There's an opportunity to reach job seekers, but you just have to, again, figure out a way to meet their needs and stand out amongst the dozens of other jobs they're applying to. You just can't post a job and pray for people anymore. It doesn't work that way. The competition for the best talent is off the charts in a way we haven't seen, frankly, ever. We also found that top job seekers are getting hired really quickly. 43% of our respondents said their last job search, everything from the initial job research to applying, interviewing, and accepting an offer, took less than 2 weeks. Now, that is remarkably fast. It's the fastest cycle time I've ever seen. And I've heard some customers say it takes them 2 weeks just to respond to an applicant sometimes. So the people who are out there looking for work and eager to take a new position are moving very fast. They want to move fast, and they choose the employer that connects with them quickly and meets that need. So if you're taking 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days, even just to respond to applicants, you're losing. The chances of you competing successfully against 12 other employers when you're the last one to respond. Think about it with car buyer leads. The last to respond rarely gets the deal. The first to respond wins the deal 60% of the time. Those are universal metrics. They apply to the recruiting process as well. Next, we found that job seekers today are using their mobile phones for much of the process. So this is an acceleration of a trend. 46% of respondents in our survey said they're completing the entire recruiting and hiring process on their mobile device. That's half of respondents. This is also a pretty remarkable number. So just a few years ago, we never saw numbers like this. As the workforce gets younger and mobile phones continue to advance, this number will only go up. So you need to be creating an experience for your candidates that is possible to complete easily, the operative word, easily on a mobile device. And this is something we'll dig into more in the next section of the presentation. And the final takeaway from our survey that I want to share with you today is that automotive has an employer branding problem. We asked job seekers which industries they viewed positively, and only 27% said they viewed working in the auto industry positively. Tied for the lowest, along with retail and gym and wellness. So factors they listed were things like inflexible hours, that's a perception now perhaps, low or inconsistent pay, or just overall reputation of the macro opinion of dealership culture. Again, not necessarily truth, but it's perception. Inside dealerships all play big roles in the numbers you're looking at. And I know much of these numbers and these reasons indicate kind of a stereotypical view of the industry, but you just can't change people's perception without doing things differently slowly over time. So you have to do everything you can to fight these perceptions and market your opportunities in a way that go directly at the things that we know people are the most concerned about when working here: hours, pay, flexibility. And so you can show your applicants that you're a great place to work and that what you offer can meet or exceed their needs. And again, this is something we're going to dig into shortly here. So how do you bring all this together? How do you operate with fewer people and truly focus on building a top-notch workforce while also trying to navigate the toughest labor market we've ever seen? You need to modernize your processes in order to modernize your workforce. So what does this look like? Well, it involves an enhancement to your entire hiring and HR effort. It starts from when you design and post open roles and extends to how you market your employment brand, and then to what you do once someone's hired. And so when there's a lot of change you can make to increase your efficacy here, there's a lot you can do, but I've broken it down into the 6 most important things you can do, which I'll talk about right now. First, one way dealerships are building a modern workforce is changing the definition of the typical retail worker. So instead of sending out pre-pandemic job descriptions that might bring in the same type of person you hired before you learned to do more with less, nearly 40% of you said in our survey that you're changing the skills and work history required for these roles, and you're looking for people with different types of experience and a wider range of abilities. So how are dealerships redefining what it means to work in retail? Well, according to the results of our survey, you're looking for a range of skills that you might not have thought to consider before. Things like a good grasp of consumer technology, very, very strong communication, written and verbal, diverse professional experience outside the auto space. Go figure, right? That I now talk to dealerships, the majority of whom say they would rather have people from outside the industry, which is a complete inversion of the conversation I was having 5 years ago when I'm trying to convince dealers to look outside the industry, right? So someone who has a desire to grow and handle shifting priorities and have proven themselves in other industries looking to make a change, well, those are great candidates. This is really important to achieving that fewer but better goal. In order to do more with less, you need to have different types of people on board with diverse and broad professional backgrounds and histories. And that is really the key to operating effectively in a way that the consumer wants to see today. Now, of course, you have to do more than just change your job descriptions. You've got to be really intentional in the hiring process to ensure that you're getting this right. So that means adding in steps, right? Taking a little bit more time, adding steps to your hiring process that you might not have used before, such as conducting planned and quality interviews where you ask everyone the same questions in order to easily compare, running background checks, skills tests, and reference checks to ensure that the people you're hiring have the skills and experience that they say they have. So every seat matters so much more now. And in the past, the auto industry has relied more on old school forms of hiring where you hire people, it's the old proverbial flood the floor, and 1 out of 10 make it a year. You're hiring people with relationships and networks, and that's important, but it's just not going to cut it as the sole means of identifying talent, given the types of candidates that you've got to hire in order to win in today's market. So once you've redefined who you want to attract in your dealership, you have to build out a great employment brand that actually encourages them to want to come work for you. So another key component of building a modern workforce is employment branding, which is the practice of marketing, packaging all the perks and uniques that make your dealership a great place to work. As I said, much like you would market or retail your car to consumers. So exactly what should you be advertising? Well, of course, this will differ from dealership to dealership and market to market, but here are some of the things that our dealership customers are offering to attract more talent. Higher pay is the top offering. You don't have to look very far to see that wage inflation is very, very real. Transitory is an interesting word. Expectations of higher pay, I think, are a little more sticky than Jerome Powell might think. Higher pay, number one, but many dealerships are also embracing things like offering flexible work schedules. And this is one of those things that, what it costs you is management time and change. But the payoff is so much greater than just throwing more money at people. And then finally, career growth opportunities. So we can pay more, we can shift more of the on-target earnings into base, we can make it more competitive. But the thing that you can do that costs less, it just takes your time and attention, is offering and building in flexibility into the way people work. Again, it doesn't necessarily matter what you do, as long as what you're doing matches your expectations, job seeker expectations in your markets where you're trying to hire. So your results may vary, but here's what your peers are doing. So how do you make these offerings known? Well, let's say you have a program for educational growth opportunities for your workforce, right? You're paying tuition reimbursement or some kind of training budget. You might feature that on your career site, along with testimonials, video testimonials, ideally, from existing team members who have used and benefited from the program. Maybe use social media to showcase the benefits of your training program, or even run ads on Facebook to talk about it. I mean, Facebook's jobs platform is the single most important new recruiting channel in our industry right now. You might also highlight it in job descriptions. So people who come across the role on different sites as your jobs get distributed out there can see this benefit right away. It's a matter of making these changes known across multiple channels so that there are several touch points where job seekers can consume this information and see that your offering might be better than the other employers they're considering. Remember, just assume you're competing with 10 other employers for that person. What are you doing that's different? Here's an example of one of our customers that does this really well, and they're at the top of the board every single year in innovation in their employment branding. On the top of their career site, they reference putting people's career in gear with a quote from a team member about how they've been able to develop their skills. They also highlight things like benefits, vacation days, and mentorship program. So if you go to Fox Motors into their career site, you'll see videos, testimonials, and a site retailing their career opportunities directly to the consumer in a way that is just so highly effective. All right, so you've redefined your ideal employee profile. You're willing to go outside the industry. You've built a great brand, and you've configured your role for the things people want, right? Pop quiz time, pay and benefits, flexibility, career path. There's your top three. Now you have to make sure you market your open roles on as many different channels as possible. So we call this job distribution in the recruiting business. But in the same survey of dealerships I referenced earlier, what we found is that in order to fill their open roles faster, 53% of dealers said they're posting jobs on a wider variety of channels. So this means going beyond job boards and considering factors like search engine optimization for your job descriptions to ensure that your jobs show up in Google searches and social media channels like Facebook. As I said earlier, jobs on Facebook is proving to be one of the top sources of talent among Hireology customers. And Bob Lanham, our friend who manages the Facebook retail sector for that company, is such a big proponent, just really a fantastic partner for helping our dealers figure out how to get this right. But when we asked our customers which channels are bringing in the most hires, so not applicants, but the actual hires, job boards still top the list, but it really is a draw between job boards and the dealership's career site. So career sites bring in almost as many hires as job boards at the macro level, while about 18% say that their employee referrals are their top source of hire, and about 8% cite social media. So the takeaway here isn't to just invest equally across all of these channels, but thinking of recruiting as a sales and marketing process, you want to run the numbers to figure out which source is working best for you. So if it's job boards, great, keep investing. But if you're finding that job boards are bringing in a ton of applicants, but they rarely convert, you should invest less in those channels and instead spend more on the sources that are actually bringing in the applicants who are a good fit. Again, if you've ever worked in the marketing side of automotive retail, I mean, this is no different than running marketing campaigns to consumers. You want to do more of what's working and reallocate dollars away from things that are working less effectively. One applicant sourcing channel that I want to dig deeply into is employee referral programs. This is the fourth big takeaway I want to cover. 76% of dealerships in the United States said they have an employee referral program, while about 18% said it was their top source of talent. If you're not in that 18%, it should be your best source of talent. So 3 out of 4 stores have a referral program, but only 1 in 5 say it's their best source of talent. That spread represents a real opportunity in the business to do 2 things. Number 1, to incentivize your best people to become your best recruiters, and 2, to give your best people an economic incentive and a way to make additional money helping you grow your business. I mean, it just is win-win all around. And so referral programs have a lot of potential to bring in better talent. Simply because when you ask your employees to refer their peers, they typically only refer people they truly believe will be a good fit. I mean, who in their right mind would refer to someone that they would absolutely loathe having to see every day in the store, right? They're going to refer people they like and trust. And so in essence, your employees are doing the vetting for you. And typically these people perform far better once hired and are much more likely to stick around longer term too. So when it comes to exactly how many hires are coming from referral programs, 30% of dealerships in our survey are saying that more than 20% of their hires came from these programs. So this is great, right? Referrals are a highly cost-effective way to reach more qualified talent. But this number can be higher. Like I mentioned before, referrals typically end up becoming better candidates and are more likely to become hires, and they're more likely to stay for 3 years than any other channel. And so this is a really good source of talent. Plus sources like job boards can be pretty expensive and they get expensive really quickly. So even if you're paying out bonuses to your team for referring new hires, your cost per applicant and cost per hire is so much less expensive going with referral programs. So, if you figure out your cost per applicant or cost per hire, right, take your recruitment marketing expenses, divide by the number of hires you make over the same period of time, that's your cost per hire. I'm guessing it's somewhere in the $3,000 range. That's, approximately the industry average. Why not pay employees $1,000, $2,000 to refer someone who stays for you for 6 months or a year, right? You're lowering your cost per hire. You're getting better people who are likely to stay longer and perform better. It's just a winning trade on both sides of it. So if you're one of the 75% that has a referral program, but who are driving less than 20% of your hires from these programs, there are things you can do to boost that number. So some steps you can take include, number 1, defining a clear policy. Make it known exactly how the program works, who can participate, and what the process is. Second, you want to campaign and communicate that you have open roles and that there are incentives to help fill them. This is the most important step. People need to hear things multiple times before it sinks in. Just ask my children. Prioritize your open roles. Share it often across multiple channels, whether that's through internal email campaigns, flyers around the office, or email signatures. What you don't do is announce it once and hope people remember. That just doesn't work. Make it really easy. People aren't going to participate if you make them fill out long forms online or log into an app every time they want to submit a referral, or if they have to remind their friend to put their name in a field on your career site. It just doesn't get it done. It's not in their job description to recruit for you, so don't make it difficult for them. You want to make it really easy. With technology like Employ Us, which is a platform we recently acquired, you can make it as simple as just scanning a QR code, launching a chatbot, and getting that referral placed. And finally, you want to match the incentive to the value of the role. People are going to work harder to find peers to refer if the payout is worth it. So for example, if you're looking for higher skilled talent like technicians or experts in digital marketing, you need to pay more, right? $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 for master techs, than you would for someone like seasonal sales associates. Employee referral programs hold the most potential for driving hires at your dealership. The key is making sure you get your program right and you make it easy so you can maximize the return on time and investment. Once you begin to attract the ideal applicant to your open roles, make sure that you keep them interested. And so the next big change you can make is to better connect with your workforce by enhancing your process, right? This is a consumer-focused effort. That starts with mobile. Given the stats we covered earlier that show how we've reached a mobile tipping point in hiring, mobile is a critical component of the hiring process. It's really the only platform that matters, frankly. And if any part of your process is too difficult for applicants and candidates to complete on a mobile device, they can and will move to one of the 12 other jobs they've applied to, right? So your homework assignment, I give it every year at Elevate, your homework assignment is to get out your phone and try to apply to a job at your own dealership. Ask yourself the question, was that a good experience? Was it easy? Or was it super frustrating? If it's frustrating and not easy, this is where you start, right? Start with a mobile-friendly job application on your career site that's easy for people to navigate and read on a phone. It also means you have to have mobile-friendly application forms. This centers around what we call responsive design in UX parlance, but if your applications require someone on a mobile device to have to like pinch and zoom in, it's really difficult to complete the fields. Don't make them rewrite their resume with their thumbs. Eventually people get frustrated and just bounce. Additionally, when it comes to the applications, they need to be short. Don't make them fill out 25 fields. That makes it easier for you to get the information you want, but that is not a process designed for your consumer, your job seeker. Name, contact info, like an email, in a field for resume upload that's optional is really the most you should require. Most people don't have a resume on their phone that they can upload. And so if you require a resume file, you're going to take your bounce rate up by about 60% more than you would if you made that optional. You can get it later. You're not asking for a credit report when someone just tells you they're interested in that vehicle, right? You want to get them in the process and get the information after there's a little bit of qualification and commitment. And finally, you want to embrace candidates' desire to communicate via texting or SMS. So if half of job seekers are completing the entire hiring process on their phones, that means they're trying to compose emails back and forth to you and your hiring manager from a phone. Smartphones come a long way. I don't know about you, but emailing on the go, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just probably not most people's favorite. Email's cluttered. It's just more difficult to email from your phone than it is to text. If I get 300 emails a day, I may read 20 of them that I recognize as important, and the rest I just get to when I get to. But my text messages, they get cleared every single day. So reach out to them via text and make it really easy for them to respond. Candidates tell us they want text messages instead of emails. It's also important that your entire hiring process feels smooth from the candidate's perspective. Again, we are retailing a product, so this experience has to be exceptional. If it feels like you're unorganized, that the process is clunky and that you're not communicating internally, that's a reflection of management. And the candidate will take that as an indicator of what it's like to work for you. It needs to be really seamless. And the best way to smooth out this process is to define predictable and repeatable hiring steps that everyone in your organization who touches this process can understand and execute. That's the recruiter, that's the hiring manager. That way, everyone knows what to do next. No steps are forgotten. Information isn't repeated unnecessarily, and it feels really seamless for the candidate. So typically, our most successful customers have some combination of these steps in their process. Now, of course, your process needs to work for you. So if you have different steps or they're in a different order, that's perfectly fine, as long as it's defined and easily understood across the team. And once you make a hire, you can't stop there, right? The final component of connecting with the modern workforce is ensuring smooth post-hire management. That starts with onboarding, right? You sell a vehicle and the delivery is terrible, the customer experience is not great. You make a job offer and their onboarding experience is terrible, that's not great. The first few weeks of an employee's experience with you are the most critical weeks to drive retention. One study found that nearly 70% of new hires who experienced a great onboarding process are likely to stick around for at least 3 years. So what does great onboarding look like? Well, that includes everything from the streamlined handoff of employee information from your hiring system to your payroll to your benefit system. On top of that, it includes a thoughtful and very well planned first few days on the job. So don't make your new hires sit around filling out paperwork. It can all be done beforehand digitally. Instead, roll out the red carpet, right? Plan their first day with a welcome meeting and lunches, introductions to the team, and a tour of the facility. Give them swag like t-shirts and water bottles, and make sure they have the resources and technology logins they need to do their jobs effectively. Make people chase down the tools they need to be successful at their job. Now, retention is more than just onboarding. Once your new hire is fully integrated into your team, sometimes, most dealerships, that's 30 to 60 days. Everything you do to manage them post-hire, from payroll to benefits administration to shift scheduling, you really got to look at these processes. They need to be streamlined, accurate, and efficient. If it's hard to go to work for you, if it's hard to pick a shift, if it's hard to get paid, if it's hard to update tax withholdings or get my benefits card resent, the whole experience is less. And with all the options in the market, what that means is that when it's right, it's good for the employee, it's good for the business. When it's not right, these things can really impact the way your employees feel about you as an employer, right? So it's this thought process that HR technology has moved from a back office administrative function to a market-facing retail-like experience for the most important assets you have, which are your people. Lastly, I wanted to touch on what it takes to get all this right. Many of these big changes we discussed that are necessary in order to connect with the modern workforce are hard to do manually or with disparate tools. You've got applicants coming in from all over the place, and you've got to move fast. Once you get hired, you've got to do a whole bunch of things to not only serve them and to ensure their success, but to stay compliant. So bringing all this together, it's a lot easier when you use an all-in-one HR and hiring solution. Putting it all together is really the name of the game here. And so when you're operating with disparate systems, it's just harder to execute all these things well. You end up conducting these processes in silos. You're manually re-entering data. Your new hire shows up to the accounting department wondering where the paycheck is, and accounting wants to know who they are because they're not in the system. I mean, these things happen. We've all experienced them. It slows you down. It makes you feel, makes everything feel clunky for your employees. It creates errors. It just overall is a drag on performance. And so what we want to do here is bring these tools together. And as I said before, put people at the center of the process. You want to design your HR strategies with your talent in the middle, not your systems in the middle and the person running a gauntlet to figure stuff out. Candidates who come through job boards or referrals or even your career site are all funneled into a single system. They're communicated from a central platform. You can then order drug screens or reference checks from the same system. Once they're hired, all that information's in the same place, pushes to payroll, that payroll sync to your DMS. That is the way we need to be doing it these days. Anything less than that puts you as at a disadvantage to other employers, but to larger platform operators in the business who are ahead of you in this area. And when all of these things are connected and live within a centralized system, you can just move faster on hiring top talent. You reduce errors, which reduces costs. You create a better experience, which drives retention. It keeps everyone happier and focused on serving your retail consumers. And for those on the HR team, it's all about focusing on the right things and less on the frustrations of trying to jump between systems. And I know those of you on this call know exactly what I'm talking about here. It's just a better way to do it. It takes some effort and investment, but the payoff is there, and it's arguably table stakes for operating right now. And that's everything I have for you today. To summarize everything we covered, first, the changes you made to survive the pandemic are here to stay. Fewer people on staff doing more, absolutely the model. Job seeker expectations have changed too, I think, permanently. So in order to hire top performers, you've just got to adjust your process and what you're offering. And that requires you to change everything from how you source to how you hire to what you do once that person is accepted an offer and is on board. It's a lot to handle on your own manually or with siloed systems. And that's why the future of HR and hiring in our industry involves end-to-end platforming that modernizes the process and frankly puts us on a level playing field with the other employers out there who have been doing these things for longer than most dealerships have in this business. All right, with that, I want to turn things over to my friend Mike McSherry to take us into a break. Mike, back to you, my friend.